Oh my, Anthony Melchiori back in action. How are you, sir?
What up? I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey, everybody. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. We got Anthony Melchiori back in the house today. I'm Glenn Hausman. Thanks so much for watching episode 652, June 22nd, 2022. How are you, man?
That's a green screen you have. I don't have a green screen. I have a really nice hotel room.
Yeah, well, I don't have a nice hotel room. So thanks for rubbing that in. I really appreciate it. Great way to start the show.
Well, like I showed you pre-podcast,
Yep.
where I'm in Jupiter helping a client get a hotel ready for a photo shoot and getting it ready to open the next couple of weeks. And so I'm leaving in a little while, but it's been a lot of fun. And you should see what they did in 24 hours to get this thing ready for a photo shoot. But I actually am very tempted to show you the view from this room. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, but it has to be quick because we got such great guests today. I don't want to leave them hanging. But yeah, go on. Mm-hmm.
So Jupiter Marina is right outside of Jupiter, and the owner decided to build a beautiful hotel. So you can see the room behind me. It's this beautiful room. Will be open in a couple of weeks, and right outside, most of the rooms have this beautiful view.
Yeah, look at that.
So you have all that. Beautiful, all those things to rent for the water. You can take out a boat with or without a captain. The restaurant is right where that canopy you see in the background is. And you have your own beach. It's the only hotel in this area that has its own beach.
Wow.
And I mean, that's Jupiter Island right there. So everybody from Tiger Woods to Greg Norman, they all live there. So you can't ask for a better location. Matter of fact, I can't wait till it opens so I can come down.
I would like to ask for a better location to do this show from one day. Maybe you have some pull over there.
Well, yeah. Listen, we've been doing this for years now, and everybody from Hawaii to Cuba to Australia has invited us, and the only place we go is our backyard. So
that is true. I will be broadcasting on Friday from the backyard for Friday Night Audit. So you got a good point there, Anthony. And another thing that's really important before we get going. Sure, guys, sure. Radisson is now combining forces with Choice Hotels International, but now is the right time for you to go and get a franchise with them. Why? Because they are getting ready to be empowered for their next generation of success. Be sure to check them out at RadissonHotelsAmerica.com. Talk to Phil Hugh, Chief Development Officer. Ask about brands such as Radisson Inn and Suites. Ask about brands such as Radisson Red, something that really took me by surprise, how much I really liked engaging with that brand. They will take good care of you even as they're going through this time of transition. Anthony.
Yeah, and listen, out of everyone in our industry, who was the person that knew about that deal before anyone else?
Bruce Ford?
Glenn Hausman.
I may have known about it for a little while. Keeping things quiet, though, is tough.
You didn't even tell me.
Sometimes you find out things you cannot ever share it. And coming from that journalism background, Anthony, I have to respect that a little bit. However,
I appreciate it.
Part of the Jewish grandmother group that I'm part of does not like that I am not a gossip person.
What's the name of the Jewish grandmother group that you're a part of?
It's the Oy Vey ladies.
I asked you that question because I knew you'd come up with a great answer.
Yeah, I'm like, as you're starting the question, I'm like, damn it, I got to use my brain.
The Oy Vey ladies, that's got to be a softball team from Long Island.
Listen, I fit in great because they start talking about their pains. I start to talk about all the pills that I have to take in order not to get up 45 times in the middle of the night. It's a great set. Plus, I got some great tips on how to make a good latke for next time.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a guest today?
We do. And we should really get to that guest right away. One of the things, Anthony, is we are now in, I'll say, the post-pandemic period. We're in that endemic period right now, but business travel is still up in the air. How are people going to be booking travel through their businesses over the next year? What is that demand going to be like? So in order to learn what the expectations are and what people are thinking, we got Lukasz Dabrowski on the show today with HRS Group. He's the SVP of Global Supplier Relations. Lukasz, great to see you, friend.
Good morning, gentlemen. Delighted to be here. Thank you very much for making the time. And Anthony, I'm so impressed you've managed to resist the temptation of staying on that beach and decided to join us today. So,
Yeah.
Well, actually, the hotel's not open yet, so they don't let me stay on the beach.
Right.
And it's actually very hot. But no, it's beautiful. Honestly, of all the hotels I've helped develop over my career, this I like it because it's small and it's got everything. This is like one hotel that you don't have to go anywhere. You have the restaurant there, you have the paddle boats, and you have a really nice comfortable room where you have all the space in the world. They actually, when they built it based on a long-term stay concept that they got from a different brand. And I also love that it's independent property. It's being run by the owner and his assistant, and helping them really become hoteliers is kind of it's what I live for. So I love it.
So, Lukasz, let's just start off. I don't think, because your company is based in Cologne, Germany. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
Global,
You're from Germany, right?
Absolutely. 50 years of history, but Cologne is still home. Yes, indeed.
And I understand that you're in the United States today. Thank you for supporting our country. I appreciate that. Could you give us a quick, real succinct understanding of what HRS Group does and why you're relevant to the conversation for us today?
So here comes the quickest elevator pitch in the tallest building of the world. That's basically what it would take.
Yep.
We are a technology and data company that specializes in a platform setup that delivers solutions across the end-to-end spectrum of procure to expense, procure to pay. So we are basically an outsourcing agent for the largest corporations of the world. Around about 35% of Fortune 500s represents the population of our customers. And what we do is we take care of hotel procurement and everything else that follows through rate loading, rate auditing, search and book component, payment, expense management, and data warehousing. That brings us back to data all over again. And we're proud to call ourselves probably the biggest data warehouse out there in the business travel lodging vertical.
Yeah. So it's hard to break it down because every area is a little bit different, but how are you seeing the prospects for business travel in 2023? And I ask you that because here in the United States in particular, and I'd love to get the European opinion as well, what we're seeing when it comes to business travel is it's still been a little bit muted. We're seeing group business come back, maybe not the size of the groups, but those individual business travelers seem to be lagging. Is that an accurate representation of what's happening now? And how will that be changing in the future?
Bless you, Anthony. Thank you, Glenn. No, what's happening right now is obviously a very quick and rapid period of people re-embracing travel. And where you can see that happening is obviously on the leisure front, first and foremost. Some people start referring to this particular phenomena as revenge travel. And
I don't like that phrase.
You can see it wherever you go in any of the airports.
It's up there with bleisure for me in annoying phrases.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. It's also based on evolving expectations of the corporations. I think there's a lot going on there, a lot of changes, a lot of very interesting opportunities also to the hotels that are relevant to the process. Because business travel is definitely coming back. And in some areas, it's already forecasted to reach 2019 numbers.
Wow.
So it is going back globally. It is emerging on this layer of very strong domestic travel period that had been a consequence of multiple lockdowns and restrictions. But it's firing sky high very quickly, very fast. It is, though, coming about in a slightly different format and a slightly different orientation in terms of priorities for corporations and for business travelers these days.
Yep.
And what we had done is we tried to evaluate those based on a so-called 5S framework, which represents 5 different pillars that the corporations usually tend to pay attention to when negotiating a hotel program post-pandemic.
Right.
And that is safety and security, that is sustainability, that is satisfaction, and last but not least, savings. Depending on whom you talk to, which customer is being interviewed, you may have different ratings attached to any of those priorities, but all 5 of them will be absolutely critical to the shaping up of the procurement season that is just about to begin.
Absolutely. Anthony, I don't know about you, but this is really surprising to me that business travel seems to be coming roaring back. Now, is this domestic travel in respective countries, or are we starting to see a boost in international travel? And I guess with what we're seeing in like Amsterdam and other cities right now, some companies might be going, ooh.
Yes, indeed. It's definitely starting with the large markets, and the domestic travel is accelerating. But we all know this. There is all kinds of ways of maintaining your existing business across international markets. But if you have to get out there and win some new deals and customers, you got to show your face. So it is inevitable. It's unstoppable. It's definitely happening. And yes, we can already see that. As far as the infrastructure, as far as what's going on in the airports, with this strong summer overlay of leisure traffic, it becomes challenging for certain locations, definitely.
Yeah, and what I'm finding with the businesses I deal with is that people are not even thinking about how it was during COVID when we would do meetings on Zoom. Like, they've almost forgot about it. It's like, of course, it's going to be there when it's critically important or it's really it's necessary. But people are getting out there and wanting to go on business trips and wanting to meet with their clients. They need to, and it's not like, well, I'm just so tired of being home on Zoom. It's like, this is just the way we do business. So I really thought for a second that it would be where people wouldn't travel as much because they can do a lot from home. I think within 6 to 8 months, you're almost going to forget that you did it that way. And I think you're seeing that.
Interesting. Michael, sorry, Lucas, do you agree with that statement? Because it's interesting, because I'm kind of on the fence. If everyone's going to be doing 100% of trips, or they'll be like, this one I could sit out because I already know this person or something. How is it actually, do you think, playing out?
It starts with the first mover in every single vertical of corporate travel. The minute the first player does it, everybody else will follow. That's basically how it happens.
Yeah.
And the other thing that is really interesting is the dynamic component to it, right? So there is no more a vision of maintaining a hotel program that remains static for the majority of the year. I think the learning out of this working from anywhere, the learning of the post-COVID reality is that everybody needs to be able to react to real-time demand, to offices being relocated, opened up, projects being moved around, people wanting to extend stays, and so on and so on. And there is a lot going on in that area. This whole sort of domain we actually labeled continuous procurement, perpetual procurement, because it does require, based on data findings, based on what we see in terms of the travel patterns, it does require immediate action to basically
that requires some immediate action right there too.
Mic drop.
Lucas, you're really just blowing Anthony away with your observations here today.
Notice that. Yes.
All right, so while he seems to try to recover from that accident, you would mention those 5 S's, but before we get into that, that's kind of how you think hotels should be thinking about RFPs for 2023, right? Because we're in this unique environment and people are still trying to figure out how things are going to go.
Definitely. I think it takes an open mind. It takes a bit of a consultancy as well. And sort of to all of the listeners on the supply side, this is probably a question that a lot of you are asking yourselves these days. What is the post-pandemic partnership that is worth investing in, right? Who's a real demand generator and who's just a passive pipe, right? This is one of those first big questions to answer, because let's talk about trends. Let's talk about the mega trends. I mean, consolidation, we've mentioned that earlier during the podcast, right? The bigger players becoming even bigger. That's definitely going to maintain moving forward. I think everybody also remembers very well the high levels of addiction to the large distribution players of the industry. Mm-hmm. And hotels are now making very careful choices of, how to basically avoid that moving into the future. But most importantly, I think the access to corporations, the access to corporate business post-pandemic has become even more difficult than ever before. And I'm talking across the board. largest players of the industry and the individual independent hotels, because resources have been simply diminished on both sides.
Right.
So getting in, making sure that you get your hands on this business that is truly precious, loyal, with a high on-stay spend, is a huge priority for everyone out there these days.
Anthony?
No, I think that's exactly right. One of the things I want to ask is, if I'm a general manager right now, listening to you, how does your company exist in my world as a general manager? So where would I find you in my hotel? Like, how does it exactly work?
Right, because obviously people at Siemens know how to do it, but how does it work on the other side?
Sure. So first and foremost, I had mentioned that earlier on, we are a company that acts on data, which basically means that we don't create opportunities for every single player out there, as much as we would love to.
Right.
We identify very precise, very tailored opportunities in terms of existing and incremental business in the data that we see, that we analyze from our customers. And for the relevant members of the supply community, we create that bridge. We act as a bridge between them and this prestigious community of the largest corporations of the world. We run a procurement platform, an RFP platform, where next to pricing, all of the elements that I had mentioned that are important for the corporates are being very visibly addressed in the process of the RFPs, making it also a very open, accessible exercise to any of the players. This is nothing to do with any type of bias or preference. It's all about pure customer centricity, pure about customer value. Getting into a process like that, any of the hotels that participates will learn about those individual and specific requirements of the corporates.
So let me back up for people who are not maybe familiar with what you're talking about. Sure. And I don't know, I'm sure Glenn knows how it works, but basically there's an RFP season. Are we in RFP season right now?
Excellent question. That brings me to one of my favorite points. We were talking about the changing dynamics. We were talking about the pace of 2022-23. And what used to be the traditional RFP season was a process that I like to describe as 9 months of fighting and sweating, at the end of which none of the parties were really happy with the outcome. So what we're doing
and just for people's knowledge, RFP means request for proposal. And it's when a hotel goes out and basically companies are looking at. So if I'm American Express or I'm whatever company, name
or American Airlines even,
and they're looking for travel, so they're going to sign a certain amount of contracts with a certain amount of hotels in certain cities. So that's the process. And in our industry, in the hotel business, like getting the right RFPs is your business. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, this was great. Anthony. I really appreciate it. So one of the things that we wanted to change, not just for the participating corporations, but also for the participating members of supply, is obviously shrinking that long process, bringing it to a much more maneuverable, agile timeline. And instead of 9 months, we're actually looking at 4 to 6 weeks. And during that period, we're acting as active consultants between the customer and the relevant members of supply, offering the hotels unique insights, even as bids are underway, so that they can basically react to those learnings in real time.
That saves a lot of time for everybody when you're taking months and months and months out of the process. How are you practically able to do that?
So proprietary technology, I think that's one of the things that we heavily rely on. And then it really starts with our ability to interview all of the participating corporations in detail upfront to establish those milestone priorities that they want to accomplish out of a hotel program. Because to us, architecting a hotel program is only the beginning. It's about then maintaining it through search and book, adding the payment components so that everybody gets the most out of it. And if we know certain objectives up front, and if we share them up front with the participating population of suppliers, it's no longer a guessing game. It's no longer an extended round of poker that can last multiple months. It's basically responding to very concrete needs. And when you know that there is no bias, that there is no trickery involved, it basically gets you ahead much faster. We also split up the entire sourcing season or procurement season into smaller waves so that we are able to steer it more efficiently, having the people on the ground, having the right technology, and having the right data behind the process.
Interesting. So what is it that the major companies are thinking about in regard to the types of hotels that they want to place their people in? You mentioned those 5 S's, safety and security, but I'm also curious about that sustainability thing is the first S I'd like to talk about, because I kind of figure that sustainability thing is kind of going back and forth and back and forth. At first, everybody thought it was really important, but you had to make a business case for it. The business case was groups are demanding it. But then we had COVID, and all of a sudden everyone forgot about sustainability. Let's just cover ourselves in plastic. Now again,
if I can jump in for a question, and tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I'm right. When we first started putting environmental points in a contract, it was like, hey, we got to get ahead. It was at the Westin Hotels in Times Square. We got to get ahead of everybody else. Now, in my opinion, sustainability is like having a bed in the room. If you don't have it in the contract, you're not getting the contract. Am I right or wrong?
This is definitely, I can only say sustainability is on the very top of the 5 S's that we have talked about right now. And the way it started some months ago was, with some of those corporates highlighting that they're thinking of making it into mandatory criteria already in the course of this procurement season. And now that we are approaching the procurement season, many of them are already making a decision on doing so. Right. So the impact is growing. Obviously, corporates are under tremendous pressure to report on sustainability data. And I think this is what constitutes the main inspiration for the program that we have built to support that process. We have oriented the entire scope of the so-called Green Stay initiative against the expectations of corporations. So what are the dimensions for CO2, for waste, for water that they have to report in their annual audits? And we have translated that to what the hotels have to submit on property level, regardless of size, regardless of location. We now have about 75 countries participating, a couple of big brands like Accor and Marriott on board already, having joined already in Q4 2021. And that is incredible traction for a program that is less than a year and a half old. Yeah. It really demonstrates that the hotels who get it, the savvy hoteliers, they understand the importance of sustainability in the process.
So like Kramer said in that episode of Seinfeld, levels, Jerry, levels. There's a lot of different levels when it comes to sustainability, right? So where are we in that? And I know every company's got to be different. So how do you figure all of that out? And what is the average right now, what people expect?
So this is more of an individual exercise than anybody would suspect, and it really is on a property level basis. The corporations aren't interested in reporting on sustainability on a level of a brand or a chain organization. They are really after the relevant hotels participating in the program, and this is the data that we are after. This is the data that needs to be collected on the hotel level to basically make it into value for the corporation that has that hotel on the program. And here it's a few methods that are at play. Obviously, we are not the normalizing party. We are taking example of international organizations that are the normalizing parties. We are guiding the hoteliers as to what data needs to be submitted in what format, so that it makes it through the gateway of the corporate that is performing the first procurement exercise, and later on the actual hotel search, because the same labeling will be present in both procurement and the search and book features.
Right. That's interesting. All right. So we got the sustainability down, safety and security. that's a no-brainer. Obviously, we don't need to talk about that, but it probably means in internal corridor hotels and all of that kind of stuff. What were the other S's?
Satisfaction and savings. So,
all right. So what is satisfaction?
Satisfaction, I think, is
I think my definition might be different from corporation things.
This is purely about corporate traveler, business traveler. This is nothing to do with the corporation as such. This is about the people who travel, and you've mentioned a few super interesting points earlier in our conversations in terms of how those expectations of travelers evolve, right? Satisfaction today will take some items for granted, and safety and security is some of them, is amongst them. But then the entire touchless process, the innovation of technology, is probably coming across as one of the leading expectations of the travelers these days, right? So everybody's hoping for a seamless process from check-in through to checkout, and a lot depends on the actual hotel creativity to make that into a success, right? So this is where we are considering this a kind of a mutual responsibility. We inform the hoteliers what is important to the corporations as far as the satisfaction criteria is concerned, but it's actually the hotels that play a critical role at making sure that they deliver on that. So we're looking for a lot of new things, innovation. We're looking for trailblazers. We're looking for partners who are willing to think and go out of the box to focus on a corporate traveler when it comes to this particular dimension.
So who says they're satisfied? Is it the individual customers at the property level from the company that then reports back to you and whoever their travel manager is?
Absolutely. My favorite example, once the sort of the obvious or the easy to anticipate items have been completed, so there has been a seamless online check-in, maybe even an electronic room key involved, voice commands in the room enabled, and that business traveler is checking out. What about virtual payment acceptance? What about the hotel's readiness to understand the various different methods of how do corporations pay these days? And what does it take? Where do payment instructions go? How to read them and anticipate them in advance so that the guy waiting at the front desk to check out is actually experiencing a smooth ride all the way through.
Right. That makes sense, because you really need to take out all of that ahead of time. Otherwise, you're never going to reach those satisfaction levels. So what was that last test? Oh, Anthony, go ahead.
No, I've seen where one guest dissatisfaction pulls a whole RFP for the next season. I mean, so it is critical that what you say is going to happen is going to happen. I mean, and like you said, especially getting into technology right now in the next 2, 3, 4 years, everything you just said is going to be in most hotels. And if you're like, if I'm going to the front desk to get my bill 2 years from now, that's a problem. If I'm checking in at the front desk 2 years from now, that's a problem. So making sure that it's an RFP that you can check in with your key or with your phone, that you can check out, on your phone, that you can basically send a text to the front desk for towels. If that's an RFP, it better happen. And we all know technology in hotels, we're like cavemen.
I can vouch for the fact that it's improving, but you're right, Anthony. It's about understanding the RFP expectations that also come with, very clear guidance. Those expectations have never been clear before randomly signing off on them and hoping for, that whatever comes, comes. I think, corporations are really consolidating their focus today. They're making their programs compliant. They're putting a lot of effort in it. So if we do it right on the supply side, there is a lot to win, right? Because you get more of those volumes within the compliant program, and the status of a preferred partner post-pandemic means a lot more than it used to ever in the past.
Yeah. What about, doing the payments and all of that kind of stuff? That's got to be super easy and, frictionless as possible, I would guess, right?
I wish. I can only wish.
Well, I'm thinking if I'm the corporate traveler and I've got to put in my expense report, I would like to do as little of that as possible.
Yeah, from your perspective, it's easy, right? From the customer perspective. When you said that, I saw his head explode because from our standpoint, it's the hardest thing in the world.
That's right. So
for some reason in the hotel business, everything is hard, and especially when it comes to technology.
And there is, it's typical that there is a human factor involved. That regardless of how many different trainings and instructions you forward to property level, there is always a churn that happens on the level of front office. And depending on the time of the day as well, that can basically make the entire science and knowledge that was shared with any given property evaporate.
Yeah. Interesting question here from Kyle. 80% of his mobile check-ins still come to the desk at check-in. What are your thoughts on cutting that number and having better communication with those that check in online?
Massive expectations of the corporations is to cut through that line. That's part of that experience that everybody's hoping to improve. Mm-hmm. I think that is definitely something that we will see on the RFPs more and more often as well. Nobody's going to be shy about it in the course of 2022-23 RFP season.
Yeah. You're going to basically soon, I'd say you're seeing it already, that front desk are going away and you're going to see somebody standing in the middle of a lobby with an iPad. So if you have a problem, you can help get checked in, but you're almost going to require the guest to check in on their phone. It's almost going to be a requirement, especially with employee issues the way they are. And as long as you have somebody in the middle of the lobby with an iPad to help you, then you won't see those lines accumulate because people are going to be forced to figure it out. And we're going to be forced to have really good technology.
It's all about the recognition of loyalty as well. This is why the corporations these days talking about the element of savings. If even if you know that you have less muscle as a company, as a corporate in a certain destination and a certain point of interest, then what you do is you consolidate the various different verticals of your business. You're putting long stay on the table. You're putting meetings and groups and bundle them with the transient volumes. And in return, obviously, yes, there is expectations to be fulfilled by the relevant and lucky privileged members of the supply.
Right. Now, we got a question from Ron Bradley, but Ron, please stay tuned. After we wrap up with Lucas, we'll address it because it's not really a question he could answer, but we definitely have some thoughts on that. Lucas, before we wrap up with you, how can a hotel best prepare themselves for that return of business travelers and get more share?
I think there's probably a couple of key rules. Number one, let's not get blinded with this sort of surge in leisure bookings,
right?
And at the expense of those, let's not turn down the business that has a long-term potential, that is regular, that is loyal, that again has a very high on-site spend. The understanding of the corporate business segment as such is very critical these days. And if you do it right, there is a lot to win. There is a lot that you can receive in return. And second piece of advice, prepare to act dynamically. So prepare to act in line with the changing demand because the demand changes rapidly. And there are agents out there in the market who are making sense out of it, who can steer the customer with the changing demand pattern into new hotel partnerships, into new opportunities, therefore creating a lot of value to people, to hoteliers who can basically follow that, who are not sticking to annual long cycles of procurement.
I'll tell you this is the biggest problem to kind of underline what he's saying is you get leisure business, and you're really, really busy, and you forget about that corporation that's been with you. And I had a hotel on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and we were very loyal to ABC Network. And we would take a lower rate, and we would give them everything they wanted. And people thought that I was wrong as a general manager. And I was like, no, because they're not going anywhere. ABC is going to be on the Upper West Side for a long time. So same thing with Columbia University. Those two people get whatever they want because they're going to be with me in the good times and the bad times. Those companies still have RFPs with that hotel, but I wasn't short-sighted. I'll give you an example. There was every year ABC would let us come in and do a Christmas party or a holiday party for them, and they only picked one hotel. And there was always this 5-star hotel, I won't name I won't name it, but there's 4 seasons in a year, and they would always let them run this holiday lunch, and I said, please let us do it. They wouldn't let us do it. Finally, they let us do it, and that's how you keep a company coming back to you. One, you make sure they know you really put your money where your mouth is and you care. And two, when everybody else is trying to give them an increase, you have to say, well, where are you at? Are you going to give me maybe a 2-year contract with a little bit more rooms? I want to be your number one supplier, and I'll work with you. And so everything he's just saying, most people are short-sighted, and most people lose business because of that.
Yeah. Yep. Good point.
Sorry for a comment.
Lucas, one more quick question for you before we let you go. Are corporate partners ready for increases that hotels are ready to ask for regarding rate?
Well, I think the corporates are also experiencing an evolution of thinking here, and yes, everybody realizes that there's been a certain investment that had to happen on the level of suppliers to make the hotels clean, to make the hotels safe during the pandemic, to basically fulfill the sustainability criteria as well, and maybe invest there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, where corporates will feel that they still can make a difference with the volumes that they push through a destination, there will always be a hard negotiation, just like in the past. But I think there is more and more of those corporates who are creatively thinking of bundling various different travel verticals into one negotiating process. And that would consist of a combination of transient meetings and groups, long stay, to make that impact. They are also prepared to move around, to be more agile, to be more dynamic than ever before. And I think number one thing worth considering in that perspective is, next to having that fixed rate, maybe where there is less room nights in a destination, always be prepared to operate with a dynamic program.
Beautiful. Lucas, how can we learn more about what you guys are up to? There's a chance for a plug.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Apologies, Glenn.
Plug your company as we say goodbye.
Okay, so HRS, the number one leader in corporate outsourcing of the lodging vertical, handling everything from procurement to search and book, payment, and expense management. Check out hrs.com for more details, and wishing everyone a very successful procurement season ahead. All the best.
Thank you, Lucas. Really appreciate you being here. Lukasz Dabrowski, everyone. Thank you so much. All right. So, Anthony, before we wrap up today, and I know we have to wrap up a little early because I have got a job I've got to do. All right. Ron is saying, I wish they would put as much into customer satisfaction as they do on how they want to collect payments. I'm in a wheelchair. I've yet to find any rooms truly designed for people in wheelchairs. Companies should allow disabled people to have input into room design when it comes to ADA rooms. Now, Ron, I have a lot to say on this, and I know Anthony will too. We had on numerous people on our show that have had mobility issues in wheelchairs, et cetera. And one, Sylvia Corbello Longmire was on, and she does a lot of cruising, and she's been in a wheelchair. And in that episode, Anthony shared a lot about the stories of the challenges she's had. So for me personally, it moved me. And I've been talking to executives at all the major brands when I go to their conferences to share how ADA rooms aren't necessarily being designed for people with real disabilities. Sylvia shared, Anthony, I don't know if you remember this on the show, where a lot of times she can't get in and out of the bed and she has to sleep on the floor. How horrible.
Yeah, and a lot of brands are now bringing people with accessibility issues into the fold, into the architectural drawing sessions to know what their concerns are. So I would highly suggest, if you have an interest in doing that, is trying to get those people's attention.
Right. Yeah. And don't think about the people at the property level. This is something with franchised brands that needs to go all the way up the food chain. So try to reach out to those people directly. I don't believe that this is an issue where people don't care. I just think it's one of those issues where it's just not front of mind, and we have to together create that consciousness so people will react.
Well said.
Yeah. All right. He said, I have a friend who was kicked out of a room because her husband took the mattress and put it on the floor. That is disgusting and ridiculous. And I hope that they don't listen to, he's saying they don't listen to people like me. Ron, do us a favor. Reach out to me, Glenn, Glenn at novacancynews.com. Let's have a conversation offline. I'd like to learn more about what your experiences are and how Anthony and I could act as liaison between you and the major brands.
100%.
Yeah. All right, Anthony, let's get out of here. But before we do that, hey, why not download us on audio? Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. And if you're listening to us now, why not watch us? Find us on our respective LinkedIn pages, Facebook pages, YouTube, novacancynews.com. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. And now Anthony is making me very sad because he's showing this gorgeous location. Thanks, Anthony. That was really nice.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. I'm going to go and stand here against my green screen while you get to actually look at
Well, actually, we look like similar. Your green screen's pretty good, bro.
Except sadly, I'm not at the Montage Los Cabos. So that makes me very sad. All right, everybody, you got one life, so blaze on, and
be kind to yourself.
See y'all tomorrow at 1 p.m. We're doing the show a little late tomorrow, 1 p.m. Not 12 o'clock Eastern time, 1 p.m.
And who are we going to have on tomorrow?
Oh, we've got the new CEO of AHOA and current chair, Neil Patel. So I'm looking forward to learning about what they're up to and what Laura Lee Blakely is going through as she gets to learn the organization. She did work with them once before, but now she's CEO. So it's going to be exciting to talk to them. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Peace.